everybody. Hope everybody's doing well on this Saturday. It's a pretty day here, but it's been a frustrating day here. My day was scrambled from the day from the word go. Scrambled because I didn't get my scrambled eggs. We have a person of interest here in the town of the mighty metropolis of Gastonia, North Carolina. And it's pretty much just rocked my world from the time I got up until now, because I'm just discombobulated because nothing has gone the way I wanted it to, when I wanted it to, because one little hiccup. And show you what we got here. Let's see here. I'm gonna switch over. Oh, my somebody messed up my that's not what I want. That's what I want. I guess I did it. Let's see here. Now switch that and switch. So this was today. This is just down the street from me, just a couple of miles. We had a visitor that just totally rocked my world, shut down everything in the city and along this route. And I was headed to my Waffle House to get my scrambled eggs. And the Waffle House was closed. The intersections were getting closed. Everything was closing down. This one of the presidential candidates coming to do a rally here about 2 miles down the street from me. And it just completely and totally disrupted my world today. And with not getting my scrambled eggs and waffle this morning, I had the DTs going on. And so the brain, instead of getting my scrambled eggs, my brain's been scrambled this morning. But here's what we're planning to do today. I'm going to, now this is kind of something very, very common, and you see it a lot. And it's not so much how handy this is as just learning the techniques and the stumbling blocks and roadblocks about what to look for to accomplish something this simple. And you'll use those tools and features in other projects. So we're going to design this in the live real quick. And I'm also going to, there was a post in the Facebook group this morning, and I wished I had seen it, but I've seen it. I don't even remember when I seen it. I don't remember if I seen it before or after not getting my scrambled eggs or what, but we're going to address that too. And so we're going to go over a couple of things and address any questions you got. I'm not going to be doing so much about, we are going to create this project, and that project is on hobowithwood.com already. But this one is going to be more about techniques, and it was really interesting. Let me see here in the Facebook group. I think it was Dale. Yeah, Dale. Dale's in the stream already. I'm pretty sure I've seen him in here. He posted a problem he was having with a file that he had purchased off of Etsy and needed some resolution. Well, I didn't see it until others had already commented and, how to do this, how to do that. And I was shocked and I was surprised. There was royalty in the comments in Hobo with Wood group in Facebook. I was like, oh, I couldn't believe it. I don't know if you know this or not, Dale, but the one comment that was in there was from Jason, and Jason is none other than the guru of LightBurn. He's the father of LightBurn. So and his suggestion would be one thing that I would have shown you, but it didn't work. I don't know if you tried it or not, but it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because this file that Dale was having problems with, and we're going to look at in a little bit, it wasn't created in LightBurn, and it had some irregular shapes in it. So the tools that Jason was saying to use, they weren't, technically they worked, but because of the misshapen shapes, it didn't give you the outcome you were hoping to get. Or maybe you didn't even notice it, but it glared at me. And that's why I say all the time, there's only one way to do things in LightBurn. Not. There's multiple ways to achieve the outcomes you're looking for, and it's always a good idea to know more than one way to do what you're trying to do, because the one way that's the right way or the best way might not just work. You may end up having to find a workaround. So knowing how to get from A to B, or A to Z without having to go through all 26 letters, or you need to know each, So we're going to look at a couple of different things today. I'm glad to see all you guys here. It's our regular small crowd on an early, for me, a mid-afternoon Saturday. We start this at 3 p.m. in the afternoon for me on every other Saturday. I know a lot of you guys are from the other side of the marble, and that's why we do it at this time, so you can attend at somewhat regularly or decent hours. So glad to see you guys. And let's see here. And if there's any new viewers in the stream today, and if you guys, the ones that are here now, if there's any latecomers that pop into the stream and you see them posting questions and they're not doing, what you should always do is, if you have a question you definitely want my attention to see and you want me to address it, precede your question with 3 question marks. Then your question. If you have a comment that when you want to go, hey, stupid, you shouldn't do that, you should do this, precede it with 3 exclamation points. Because I'm scanning the chat, but I don't have time to read every single post. I do afterwards. But during the live stream, I can't read them all. So if it's something that you want a question on about what we're doing, and I stop periodically through the design processes and the different things we're doing so I can look for questions and comments, because there are times that I learn from you guys too. And that makes me really excited. The other day, I learned 2 new things in the stream, and I was dancing in my seat. I was like, all right, I learned 2 new things today. So it's a give and take, but question marks before your question if you want it addressed here in the stream, exclamation points. And if anybody joins the stream and you guys recognize that they're asking the questions that that should be addressed, but they don't have the question marks and I don't see them, either do it for them and we'll get to it. We'll get them addressed. But anyway, I was blown away this morning whenever I seen Jason had commented on Dale's post in the Facebook group. In fact, we'll look at that and then we're going to go over and do this. And then after I go, because this is what's in the thumbnail. And so I want to address this first and how simple something like this is to create. And there are roadblocks to look out for and steps that I'm going to do to help eliminate those roadblocks and stumbling blocks that could be possibly problems after you've created your design. But stuff like this is really, really easy. And why you don't need this. There's nothing you need. You don't need a Christmas tree to put on your living room table or your coffee table. But what about an earring stand? A small earring stand that you could take and just put some little holes in, and then they could put on their night table and hang their earrings in there and have it wouldn't have to be tree shaped, but the techniques we're going to talk about in this design here can be used to create all kinds of shapes. Be it a kind of a palm tree looking thing to make an earring stand or whatever you want it to be. So it's not about the project this week so much it is about the tools, tips, and tricks. And we'll just have some fun hanging out together for a little bit. All right. So before I get into anything, I'm just going to look to see if there's anybody's already posted any questions or comments. I do say hello to everybody. I'm not going to do like a lot of the fellows who just go down through the roll call because we don't want to waste a whole lot of time, If you want me to say your name in the stream, put exclamation points and Chicago Bob, and I'll go, hey, Chicago Bob, you got exclamation points. But I don't think you're here because you want to hear your name on the stream, any of you. So I'm not going to announce the roll call. I'm just going to look for any questions or comments, and we'll jump right in here. And this is not a question or comment, but Ed's a local, and I'd seen Jack in the shop. He's here too, but Ed was probably maybe inconvenienced a little bit by that motorcade and everything that was going on today too, because I think he is geographically he's right in the middle of that. I think so. Hopefully your life wasn't too disrupted by that. Questions. There we go. Watched one of your videos from 2 years ago and learned about flood fill. Yeah, and I tell you what, guys, if I haven't taken down any of the videos, any of them, including the ones that are just completely bogus and full of mistakes, and I'm end up with egg in my face and all that, because I wanted to show the entire learning curve. The whole adventure of Hobo with Wood starts with me receiving the first laser from the postman and putting it together and trying to figure out LightBurn without any instruction except for YouTube University. And so, yeah, there's some funny ones in there, and there's some that are comical, and there's some that are like, really? Really? You didn't need to do that. But I'm not taking any of them down. All right. Looking for questions and comments. What is a darn laser? That's an example of how to post your question. A laser is light amplified. I forget. I used to know that, but laser actually is an acronym. In fact, just for the heck of it, since you put that up there being funny, somebody might have already put it in the comments. Light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. That is laser. Light amplification by stimulated emissions of radiation. So that's what a laser, that's what a darn laser is. Let's see here. How about an actual tree topper? Something you want to do that's conical, that would actually sit on the bough, where you stick the bough of the tree right up the angel's butt or whatever. You could do that, and you could do that with a living hinge. Or you could do it with a box if you didn't want to mess with the living hinges. Living hinges are time consuming. They can be a little bit aggravating and frustrating if you've got if you're working with inferior or low quality woods. Sometimes they cut through, sometimes they don't cut through, and because you're having to cut practically the entire area, if there's a bad spot, you're going to find it with a living hinge. But they kind of look cool whenever it's all said and done. And I have done some conical living hinges so that when it wraps together, it actually wraps around in a cone shape. But living hinges they can, over time, they're going to be fragile. But tree topper is something that could be done. Okay. All right. No, that's a microwave laser. Light amplification by stimulated emissions of radiation. I don't know if Dave, if that's your, but yeah, I've always heard that's what laser, and that's what Google says. Not microwave, but that's what laser is supposedly stands for. Supposedly, it's what I've always heard. All right, so now let's jump into this real quick, and then we're going to go over and look at Dale's problems. In fact, I'll just show you what Dale's problem was here in this. He posted it in the group, and switch. There we go. So he says, is there a way in LightBurn to go in and change the size of holes without having to do each hole individually? And yes, Dale, there is, but it don't always work. It works sometimes, but if I'll take that back, if it was created in LightBurn, it would always work. But when you're importing projects in that weren't created in LightBurn and they aren't perfect shapes, then you have problems like you ran into this. And we're going to look at that. And in the Hobo with Wood group, before I even seen this, there were several. In fact, Chris replied to him, and Chris's suggestion worked. It would make the holes larger, but it makes the whole image larger. And so when you shrink the image back down, you're back to your regular size. I didn't see how that was going to work for him, Chris. In fact, Dale just said thanks. I don't know if he had any success with it, but right there is our superstar. There is the father of LightBurn. And Jason replied to him and said, select one, make it the new size, then select all of them except that one, then hold shift and select that one so it makes it the last thing you selected, then click arrange, go to make same width and make same height. Now, I have not used the arrange drop down menu for that in a long time. In fact, I can't remember, because there's a shortcut for it on the toolbar. And I'm going to show you that and why it worked on some of them and why it didn't work on others. So this is going to be an informative stream. We're going to try and keep it concise. And so now that we're 15 minutes in it, we're going to jump into LightBurn. Oh, and also just touching base, I did get the item shipped out from last Saturday night's live stream, and it went to Jody in Australia. I did not, exclude anybody from the giveaway, and that item got shipped out Monday morning. And from what I can see, it looks like it might be still in Florida, according to the shipping, or somewhere. But it's going international shipping, going to Australia, going to was it Queensland or Wilsonton, Australia, which I guess is in Queensland, I think. But surprisingly enough, and I say this a lot, and I don't get all preachy with you guys, but my needs are always met, and Lord always provides for me. I did not exclude anybody from that giveaway. I wanted everybody to have a chance to win it, and that's why I didn't. And to ship that item from Gastonia, North Carolina to Australia, it was $37.70. And during that live stream, 2 of you gifted me $20 a piece, which covered the shipping cost to get that item out of there. So thank you. Thank you for contributing, and thank you for making it possible for me to continue to share with folks and to teach folks and to enjoy doing what I'm doing in LightBurn. This is my escape. So let's see here. I'm going to close that, and we don't need that no more. And we're going to jump straight into LightBurn and look at this design. All right. So for my gold member patrons, just in case you don't log into Patreon rather, and see the post I put up regularly, this month's art library that I shared was an art library of my Christmas trees. And that's what we're going to jump in here and look at now. So I've got an entire art library of Christmas trees, and I looked for one that looked like it was pretty symmetrical to begin with, and I think it was this one. And I just double click that, bring it in over here, and we'll zoom into that. And while that looks pretty symmetrical, I can see right now that's a little bit cockeyed. It's not perfectly straight up and down. And for that reason, anytime I'm doing a piece like this where they're going to interlock, and alignment is really crucial. At least it is for me. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. When I slide these together, I want everything to line up where the seams are at. And if it's not perfectly symmetrical, then if you then you have to pay attention to how you assemble it. You could still slide it together so the asymmetry works, but this side would be different than this side. But only if you slid it together correctly. So I like to pay attention to my symmetry when I do these kinds of things. And let's put this in line mode. And if I were to bring a toolpath over here and put it right there at the top of the star, get right to the top, right there. As I come down, you can see that star is not quite in the middle. That's not in the middle. These guys here are going to be eliminated, but the points are not lined up exactly in the center. And that's what I'm looking for when and that's also why I do what I do to try and create the symmetry by eliminating half of the piece. You could sit here and grab each of these, ungroup it, and grab that and move it over to where it was right on the center, and move it all, go all the way down, moving each individual piece. Now that's centered up, and then you can grab the next one. But instead of doing that, I'm going to undo what I just did. There, it's all grouped. I'm going to get rid of that toolpath. I simply draw me out a rectangle larger than my overall shape. Then I take it and come over here and put it right in the center, just like that. And then I hold my shift button and select, and the tree is completely grouped. Everything's grouped together, and it's crucial that it is. So it doesn't matter in this case with what we're doing. And how many ways are there to do things in LightBurn? You can do this a whole bunch of different ways. You can do it with Boolean tools or cut shapes. And each way you do it creates its own individual stumbling blocks. And that's the challenging thing about trying to teach how to do some of these things is when you only teach your way, which is the right way, these stumbling blocks, and what we're going to look at with the deal with Dale's circles in a minute. Jason's suggestion on how to do that was the right way to do it, but it don't work with this. There were stumbling blocks that Jason wasn't aware of because he didn't have access to the file. And that's when I ask, when you have a problem with a file and you want my assistance, it does no good to just send me a question. I need to see what you're working with, because Jason told you how to fix it, but it didn't fix your file because there's problems with your file that he didn't know about and couldn't be aware of because he's not able to see it. Let's see here. While I'm stopped, I see exclamation points. Chris says it'll work because you only need the circles, not everything. I didn't have any success with it, Chris, and we'll play with that, and then maybe, in fact, if you want to, we'll even, if you're brave enough and you got, and you don't even have to have a camera, as long as you got a microphone, I can send you a link and you can jump in here and we can talk once we get over there to that. All right. In fact, let me go ahead and mark my spot in the chat. There we go. All right. Now, in fact, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to duplicate what I've got already so that I can show you two ways that you can get this outcome. If you select the tree first and then select the square, you've got your Boolean options over here. And you can say A subtract B. And A was the first piece you selected, which was the tree. B was the rectangle, and that's this one right here, A subtract B. And click it, and now you've got half of that tree. But then over here, you can also say A and here and tools and use cut shapes, Alt-Shift-C, cut shapes. Now I want to show you the difference between cut shapes and the Boolean selection. So there, when I cut shapes, I've got this half of the tree highlighted, but the other half of the tree is still there, where here it got rid of the tree, the other half of the tree. And when I move this, it didn't cut that complete because I must not have had something just right, but it leaves you with open shapes. This is completely open. Now, it's not to say you couldn't do this. Now, I don't know why it didn't cut that up there. I'm curious about that. Was it not grouped? Yeah, that's all grouped together. Alt-Shift-C. Huh. I don't know why it did that right now. And I don't want to go chasing that rabbit down that hole to find out why it didn't cut that piece. But this, you could still make this work by simply, once you edited with that one problem there, you duplicate it, Control D, duplicate it, and then flip it. Not that way, stupid. And then you bring them together and weld them together, and you'd have it, this little funky thing in the middle because everything wasn't lined up. But that's not what wouldn't be a problem because of what we're going to do. But we're going to use this option over here. I'm going to say Control D, duplicate it, flip it, move it over, and I can already see that it's not going to line up perfectly. Can you see the taper, how it looks like it tapers away from each other? We used a rectangle to cut that in half, but if I just take my padding off of there to 0 and dock that straight over, if I go in here, you see how it's not touching there. And that's because there was some a little bit of, it wasn't completely uniform in its design. And you can overcome that by simply moving, and I move each side in to keep everything, because I'm after symmetry here. So if I take this and I've got my control movements, my units and grids, I got my control arrow movement at 0.002. I'm going to say 0.02 millimeters. Say okay. And I'm going to hold control and the arrow over to the left. And then I'm going to select the other side and say control arrow to the right. Now that gives me a little bit of overlap there, but down here where it wasn't touching, it should be, yeah, now we're golden. So now I'm just going to hold my shift button and select those and weld it together. And now I have a perfectly symmetrical Christmas tree. Perfectly symmetrical Christmas tree. And the reason that these don't matter, one, it doesn't look terrible. And two, they're going to be cut away anyway. We're going to be cutting the middle of that tree out in order to make this a two-piece puzzle that slides together. But when you're designing, it's a good idea to be designing with the smallest possible size you're going to be making this with. That way, when you're putting it to design together, you can see, okay, well, if I plan on making it, this tall, then I know I can make, these cuts this small. But if you shrunk it down, all of a sudden, now there's nothing there. You cut it all away. So if you make it as small a scale as possible, so when you scale it up, it's a non-issue. Scaling down is where you start losing details and it creates problems. So at this point, what I might do would take, and if I'm working with one of my most common pieces of material, my premium Baltic birch, it's 300 by 300 square. And I'd put it on a tool path, and then I'd put it in the bottom corner. And also by designing this way, if you want to maximize your material, get the absolute most you can out of it, leave as little meat on the bones as possible, design it within the workspace of your material so you can see, okay, well, yeah, this will fit, but now look how much waste this is causing. But if I shrink it down just a little bit, I could then mirror it, flip it, and put one more over beside it. And now I'm getting two out of one, And then you can always scale that up if you wanted to make it and have it out of one big piece. All right. So I've got my symmetrical Christmas tree. I've got it here in the corner of this, and I'm going, and right now it is only 135 mil tall, or about 5¼ inches. So if I, and I'm going to show you this, it's nothing to do with design, but if you're not familiar with the anchor point, it's what I call it. LightBurn doesn't call it anything, but there's there's 9 dots up there in the top. And I think they might call them radio buttons once or twice, but they don't really have a true name for them. But I call them anchor points because I lived on a boat for 7 years. And whenever you drop your anchor is, you hope, your anchor is fixed. Your anchor does not move. Your boat will pivot in the wind and in the current around your anchor point, but the anchor never moves. So those radio buttons up here in the top, these 9 points, I call those my anchor points. So right now, if I've got this positioned down here in the bottom left corner of that toolpath, and I want to scale it, but I don't want it to move from this position, then I'm going to drop my anchor over here. I want to drop my anchor in that bottom left corner. And then if I start telling it I want to scale it up, or I've got my aspect ratio locked until I want it to go from 6¼ inches, I want it to be, or 5¼ until I want it to be 6½ inches. It scales it up and away from that corner. So I don't have to reposition my design. And if you get in the habit of using these, when you're done using them, the most common place and the most effective place to put this is in the very center right here. That way, when you're scaling and changing things, it scales it out in equal directions. But there are times when it benefits you to drop your anchor in a different point. All right. So now we talked about anchor points. Now I've got this, and it's 6½ inches tall and 5¼ inches wide. And I've got a whole bunch of material left up top here. And let's see here. I'm also, my premium Baltic birch is a nominal thickness of 3 millimeters. So when I make these designs, I usually do my slots and tabs at 3 millimeters. And then whenever I'm going to the laser, I'll actually mic them and change to my slots and tabs to fit the material I'm putting on the laser. But there are things about doing these interlocking pieces, especially with this particular Christmas tree, or any Christmas, or not any design that has inner shapes that are going to be cut away. There's something you need to do, or something you don't need to do, in order to be able to keep this thing where you can edit and change your slots and tabs. And that's what we're going to look at now. So I've got, but before we do that, so I've got this piece here. Now I want to put a tab on the bottom of this design that's going to fit into the base that I'm going to create. So I'm going to go ahead and draw me out a rectangle. I'll put it on the same O2 cut path. And I'm just like my slots, I'm going to make my tab 3 millimeters. So let's go back to metric. 3 millimeters. I'm going to unlock my aspect ratio, 3 millimeters. And then I'm going to grab my ruler, and I'm going to look at the length of this base of this tree. All right. You see how I'm not getting the entire segment down here of that tree? It's chopped up. There's part of it. There's part of it. There's part of it. So the reason it's doing that is it's giving you the measurement between the nodes. So if I select this entire piece, and you can see it's grouped right now, you can tell it's grouped by selecting it because it's got dash, dot, dot, dash. So if I ungroup that design, now I've got dashes, and I can then go to my nodes, and I can see there's why I was getting different segments, because now if I check my ruler, you can see there to there, and I go back to nodes. There we go. There's that node, and there's that segment that it was measuring. So if you want to see that overall length, go back to node, sorry. You don't, in fact, to ensure that that base is completely flat across there, select every one of those nodes on the bottom and hit the letter D, not the delete button, but the letter D for delete. And you actually, if you've seen that close enough, I'm going to zoom in. Watch that line when in fact, there's a little node there I didn't see. If I hit, we select them all. In fact, just for giggles, I'm going to come up here because I don't know how much of this you can actually see on there. I snapped that to that. So that's now overlapping. Well, now you can see there. See how it doesn't line up over here? That's higher. It's touching in the middle, but that's not touching. So that's not completely flat. And this is another thing that Dale may or may not have been aware of on his pattern design that he had. There was a tremendous amount of asymmetry and a lot of things that just didn't line up. It was, and if that was your Etsy design that he bought off of Etsy, then it's a lot of good work. It just wasn't Hobo ready or LightBurn friendly. So, and these are the things that when you buy a file from hobowithwood.com, these are the kind of things that I go through and try to eliminate all these headaches and hiccups so that you don't have a problem and you can use all of the tools in LightBurn without a problem, because it is as much as I can do to make it 100%, because it is LightBurn ready because it's designed in LightBurn, but I make it as user-friendly as possible. So if I got that selected, I go back in here to my nodes, and now I'll select all of those nodes again. And if I come down here, and you can see I've hit the letter D for delete, see it jumped up. There was a pretty significant difference in what being flat and what it actually was. So now select that tool line, get rid of it. Oh, not that. I hit the delete button, didn't want to. I needed to select just that tool path. There we go. And now I hit the delete button. Now, when I put my ruler down here and measure that bottom, you see how it goes all the way across from corner to corner, and it tells me it's 46.72 millimeters in overall length. So I'm just going to say 46 millimeters. And that's what I'm going to make that tab. It's unlocked. I got a height of 3, and I'm going to tell it 46. And now I'm going to select my tree, tell it to go to vertical center. And now I can move this up in one of two ways. I can have both of those selected right there and use Alt-Shift-V for moving it vertical. And it's going to jump right up there. Or, and if you don't remember shortcuts, the Alt-Shift-V, if I got that one, and I go to move selected object, or no, distribute. Move together horizontally or move together vertically. Alt-Shift-V and Alt-Shift-H is in your distribute underneath the arrange menu. But another way you can do that is you select just this one, and this works only when you're designing on your work area of LightBurn. If you move it out of the work area of LightBurn, this tool will not work. It must be in the design area of LightBurn. So there, I select just this one, and these up here are your docking tools. This is dock left, dock right, dock up, dock down. And if you were to look at these real close, and I wished I could make them in live stream, I don't know how to zoom into that, but there are little squiggly lines behind that square showing that that's motion moving to the left. This is motion moving to the right. And I want to move this one up. So docking is here, docking up. And if I hover over it, dock objects upward. And if it doesn't go up to, in fact, I'll change it right here, this padding. If I change that padding value to 2 and I tell it to dock upward, it's only going to get within 2 millimeters of that. It will not go all the way to the base of that tree. But if I change my padding to 0, and tell it to dock upward. And because I flattened the bottom of that tree, they're now perfectly aligned and right up against one another. Now, something I've never done, and I just thought of this, honestly, I'm curious, can you dock it past 0? Can you put in a negative number and take it beyond its boundary? Let's find out. I don't know if, because there's times when you want it to actually overlap and go past it. So let's undo that. Undo. There we go. Now I'm going to get, can I go a negative value? No, 0 is as far as you can go. You can't do a -1. And that actually would come in handy, because if you didn't go to the trouble of going in and getting the perfectly straight line, eliminating all those nodes, when you weld those two together, you're going to get rid of all those nodes anyway. They're going to go bye-bye. But it wouldn't weld together perfectly unless the two overlapped each other. Then when you weld them together, now they weld up perfect. Then you could resize your tab size. There's always another way. So I've got my padding at 0. Take that, and I'm going to dock it straight up. Now I can hold my shift button and grab that and hit my weld Boolean tool over here. And now that's welded together. And because it was a little longer than 46, I got that little ear, and that's fine. And over here too, but they're perfectly symmetrical, and it's going to work. So now I've got a 3mm tab added to the bottom. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to go ahead and group it back together, duplicate it by hitting Control D, move it over here. In fact, you can at this time, because we're going to put these together with a middle slot, but one's got to be on the top and one's got to be at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. And I rotated it by using my less than key or the comma key. But the less than, if you look at your comma key and look up above it, it's got the less than symbol. And the less than and the greater than on the period and comma key point to the direction in which it's going to rotate. So if I did the greater than, it rotates it that way. Less than rotates it that way. So now I'm going to move those into position. I'm going to go ahead and I'll nest these where I can have the least amount of waste. So something like that could actually work. But now I need to get my slots to put these together. How do I do that? How do I figure out what my slot size is going to be? Well, I look at the overall height of one of these. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna back up just a minute just to make things easy on this old noggin. And instead of having to remember all these decimal points, I'm going to go ahead and delete that, undo it. I'm going to select that entire image, lock its aspect ratio. Right now it's showing 168 and some change. I'm just going to tell it to go to 170 mil. There. Now it's a nice even round number. And now Control D, duplicate it, and select it. Select that duplication, rotate it twice, move it over here, and get it in position. And I know that it's 170 mil. So now I'm going to take and get my rectangle tool again, and I want to draw out a rectangle that needs to be, in this case, it needs to be 3 mil wide, and it needs to be 100. And I need to unlock my aspect ratio because I've got my width correct. Now I need to set my height. Now we know that the height overall is 170 mil. We need half of that. And you can do mathematical equations in these fields. So all you have to do is put in the 170 mil and divide it by 2 and hit enter. Now, some of you are a whole lot smarter and faster than I am. And you could have you probably could have done that with the decimals of 168.84. Well, half of that is, and well, I ain't that good or I ain't that fast. And I don't need to be because LightBurn can do it for you. And I use the round numbers because it's just easier for this to do it. But put in your total overall height and then put in the division sign and the number 2. And LightBurn will do that math for you and puts it at 85 mil. Now, this actually, before I go do this, this is the step that I was telling you about that is crucial in order to be able to maintain this as an adjustable design, and not just this Christmas tree. Any piece that you're going to put together, scissor them together and make a stand like this. If it has inner pieces that are cut out that are going to overlap where that piece slides together, it's crucial that you do not create the physical slot in your design. Because once you do, it's no longer adjustable. Because the resize slots and selection tool looks for 4 continuous nodes that are parallel to each other. So actually, these 2 are parallel to these 2. So whenever you're doing the node editing tool, in fact, squirrel, we got a bunch of squirrels. We always got squirrels. I just want you to see this. And then I'll look for any questions or comments that may have posted. If I take this and I just draw out we're going to put a rectangle over here. And I'm just for giggles, so I know what they are. I'm going to tell it to be 80 and 20. All right. Well, I had it locked, so I got to go back and do that again. 80 and 20. All right. If I have that selected and I'm using the resize slots and selection, and I'm wanting to change the slot width, the width of the slot can be this way or it can be this way. Depends on how your design piece is and how you interpret it. So if I tell it the old material thickness is 20 mil, then it's going to move that slot from this edge to this edge by whatever amount you tell it here. But if I tell it the material thickness is 80, it's going to move that same square from the inside or from either side, moving it towards the inside. So the resize slots and selection tool is looking for parallel nodes, and they must be constantly connected. So if you cut out that middle section of your design when you're doing these inner pieces, LightBurn no longer has 2 consecutive nodes that it can change for your material thickness. And I'll show you this and I'll look at questions. Switch. So what you have to do, cancel that, delete that. We've already sized it to 3 and half of the 170, so 3 and 185. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to tell it to come over here and I'm going to align it to the center and to the bottom. And now I'm going to take that and duplicate it, Control D, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to tell it to align to the center and the bottom. But actually it's aligned to the top because I got it flipped. Now I will not. Now what you could do, and what a lot of people do and struggle, is if you take your original piece and you say that's A, subtract B, and you subtract that out. Well, there's your slot. There's where it's going to slide together. The problem is now you no longer have those 2 consecutive parallel or 2 nodes from that corner to that corner. They're broken up. So, and they're not connected here. So if I try to resize slots and selection, the only thing it's going to recognize as a slot is this piece up here. So if I come here and it won't recognize it as a group. So if I ungroup it, go into tools, resize slots and selection, I know it was 3 mil and it's slot width. You see there, it recognizes that, but it doesn't recognize any other part of that slot because they're not connected here or here. So it has to be, and here you have the 4 nodes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the only ones that it's going to see and change. So we're going to cancel and we're going to undo, and I'm going to come back looking for questions. I don't know if we've got any or not. But when you do these designs, and it doesn't matter if you're doing a Christmas tree, earring hanger, whatever you're doing, Christmas or Thanksgiving turkey, whatever you're going to do, if you're going to make these interlocking pieces, you need to leave this middle piece completely intact so that now whenever you select it, if I select, in fact, you would need to have that grouped. So let's see if I grab all of that. I got that and don't want it. So you hold control and select it to deselect it. And I'm going to deselect this one. And I'm going to group that tree back together. Oh, never mind. I didn't have to do that because I did. I went back far enough to do that. These inner pieces right here are going to cut out and fall away. So those are wasted cuts. It's okay to delete them. Not necessary. It'll just save you time if you do, because they're going to cut and fall out. And these are going to cut and fall out. But with that being separate, now when I take and select that and tell it to do the tools and resize slots and selection and tell it I need to change my slot width, I can put in whatever my material thickness is to what it's actually going to be. And it's going to move that entire piece from the center out. And you do that to both of those rectangles, and it would create the appropriate slot size. So I'm going to jump over here to my last mark and see if anybody's posted it. There you go. There's, and believe it or not, folks, that's the same kind of mark I make on legal documents now. So that's my legal mark. Let's see here. Question, Jeffrey. There a way to thicken the cut lines on a more fragile design? Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking. Yes, there is. It's very, very simple. But that's why I say, design it as small as you're going to make it, or that you anticipate making it. Because that way, when you scale it up, you're only scaling and getting them larger. But if you're working with the design that is just really, 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 really small, it's going to have it's the height, it's the size you want it. But now it's going to create one area that's going to be problematic, and you need that to be thicker. There's a real easy fix for that. And I'm going to come back to other questions here in a second, but let me show you this for Jeffrey. Turn his comment off and come over here. In fact, this will be a good chance to, because these pieces I need to go away. That they don't need to be there. The ones I just showed you, the cuts within the cut. I'll use that as an opportunity to show you how you can do that, and I'm going to get rid of all of it anyway. So if I was doing a design and I measured here from here to here, that's 2 millimeters. And from here to here, that's 1.5 or 1.4 millimeters. If I was like, okay, well, that's going to be so small, and so I need that to actually be a little bit larger gap right there, then all you would need to do is just simply, and these are still grouped. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this, I'm going to Control D, I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to bring this over here so I don't mess up my other piece. I'm going to ungroup that now. And if this was something that was going to be just too small or too fragile, then yeah, you just do a simple offset. And in this case, you need to go outward of that so that you can make that bigger and delete your original. And if, say, you wanted to add a millimeter, you would add 0.5 millimeter in each direction. And now that's going to be 1 millimeter larger. I'm going to delete that and delete that because those do not need to be in this design. But if this area right here in this design, because there's my outer perimeter and there is the outer perimeter of that inner cut, and it's 2 millimeters. Well, there are a couple of things you could. Are y'all tired of hearing me saying there's always another way? There's not just one way in LightBurn. If I was concerned about that area right there being 2 millimeters, I could approach this a couple of ways. I could simply select this and come in here and do an inward offset of, and in this case, if I only do a 0.5 mil, it's only going to come in 0.5 mil. So if I did a 1 millimeter inward offset and say, and delete the original and say, okay, then it's going to beef that up. But I would have to do that and check all these in it. And then also it does some funky little things right there. So another thing you could do to prevent that is, okay, well, I want it to be about that size, but I don't, if I change that, it messes up the look of it. So then what I need to do is select my outermost piece and do an outward offset of it by 1 millimeter or delete the original. Now that's going to change my overall size. And if I've already done my tab, it's going to change the tab. And because I did round, it changed the corners of it. So those are things that you hope that you see and identify before you get too far down the path, so you don't have to undo a lot of things you've already done or redo a lot of things you've already done. And trust me, when you're designing, the undo feature will get worn out on your, like, on, if it was a way to put wear on the screen from clicking so much, the undo feature would show a lot of wear when you're creating and designing, because especially if you're doing it kind of like, organically, it's like, let's try this or do that. Yeah, that didn't work. Undo, 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 undo. Let's try this. Undo, 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 undo. So there are multiple ways you can make something that's going to be too fragile not as fragile. And then sometimes it's just a matter of, it's not going to work if you do it that small. In order to keep the detail and have the look you want, it's either got to be bigger or you got to find another design. All right. So that was Jeffrey. Bob. When using the resize slots and tabs, does it take the anchor point into consideration when it resizes? No, I don't think so, because but we'll look at it real quick. It's an easy test. I've never noticed it to be a problem, but this is how easy it is to test that. I'm going to take and I'm going to draw a rectangle here, and I'm going to do outward offset, do corners. So I don't, there we go. And say, okay. Oh, I didn't want to delete the original. Dumb. Offset. Don't delete corners. Okay. So this one is, oh, didn't want to do that. Didn't want to do that either. Get my selector. Delete that. So this one is height of 15.6. So let's put the anchor point over here in the corner and go to resize, slots and selection, 15.6 slot width. And our anchor points over here in the corner, it's just going to move these down. Does not take that into consideration. And we tell it to apply. It still stayed centered up within that. It just moved those two lines down. And I didn't think that it affected it, but better be sure. Better, that was an easy test to find out. Delete that. Question. Yeah, Control Z, undo. Control Z, Command Z. All right. So mark. Make my mark. All right. Now go back here. Get rid of what we were done there. So here, I've got my two mirrored pieces that are symmetrical. I've got my 3 millimeter rectangle in the bottom and also in the bottom, but it's the top since I've got it inverted. And now I can actually take and look. And what we do was that 46 mil. Well, let me get my ruler. That's saying it's 46.53. Oh, it's because I scaled it up a minute ago. 46.53. All right. So now I'm going to draw out a rectangle and unlocked aspect ratio 46.53 and 3 mil. So that's the size of that slot. If I was doing it with 3 millimeter wood, I'm going to hit Control D, duplicate that, use my less than got to select it first, select it, and less than to rotate it. Now I'm going to select them both, and I'm going to come down. Where do I want to do it at? Let's do it right here, because I'm looking here. If I was to make a square, I could do it either place, either there. In fact, let's do it over there. That's actually more of a true waste area right there. So now I'm going to take that and I'm going to do an offset, and I don't want to do the corners. I'm going to do round, and I'm going to do an outward offset in each direction, 5 mil, and do not delete the original and say okay. So that just created the base for these two pieces, once they're interlocked, to slide into here. And it's going to be done on this piece of the wood. In fact, now I could even bring it down to there to, minimize my waste. And I would put this skeleton over my skeleton pile, where I will use all of that meat on another project when I'm just needing little bits and pieces. So that is that. That quick, we did that. And like I said, I used a Christmas tree because I did this design and gave the design away to my patrons. I sent this out to every patron yesterday. And I was talking with someone. I was like, you know what, this could even, you actually could do it with the Christmas tree. But if you didn't want to do this Christmas tree, if you used a different shape and put holes in and around certain proper placement, then you can make an earring stand that you could put on your nightstand or on the dresser for the ladies, or what do they call them? The makeup. I don't know. It's been so long since I lived in that world. I don't even know. But, there's lots of places that you can use these techniques that we just talked about to make interlocking designs. And also, even if it's not this, there was, and I don't know if you're in the stream today, and I can't draw, I'm drawing a blank. Somebody had sent me a request about how to do, in fact, if you're in the stream right now, they sent me a request about making an easy to assemble, I think it was like a log cabin or a house. It was a little structure. Well, if you do the 4 corners of the structure like we did this, where you would have, the corners are just going to slide together. You don't have to glue them up. Each corner would slide together like that. And I think they were making it for their granddaughter, and they wanted something that was easy to put together without having to worry about little hands or something. And this would be an easy way to assemble. And that's how I'm going to work out those design suggestions. But that would take care of the front and back and the 2 sides. And then I would do some tabs or something that the roof would, interlock with. So I'm working on that. If that was your request, I ain't even going to guess or try to remember who it was, but I am working on it. And it's going to involve using some of these techniques. And, and when you're doing a solid piece, when you're going to cut that inner slot, out of a solid design, there are no other pieces, you can go ahead and cut that out. As long as you have a constant, straight line from each node to each node, then you can still use the resize slots and selection tool. Okay. Question. Yeah, Bob, it was grayed out. So it was not relevant if it was grayed out. What was the Control Z on the comment? What was Control Z for the Commodore? Wasn't that the undo? Dave asked, what did you use to paint the tree? Well, it was, oh, fudge. Just went here, here and here and here, here. Yeah. Okay. So if you haven't, and I try to do this when I can, and when I can remember. If we go over to the website, hobowithwood.com, there I've posted the view and the descriptions, and there you can see the blow up view. And this is glitter paint, and you can see all the details in that blown up image. But down here in the description, I said it's perfectly symmetrical and finished. It can be finished multiple ways. I used Glitter Blast spray paint. And if you see it's a link. So if we click on it, there it is, the Krylon Glitter Blast. Now, this stuff is not cheap. 5 3/4 ounces, and it's $16, almost $17 for. And if you're not aware, 5 3/4 ounces is only about a third of a can of spray paint. So if you are going to use the glitter bomb or glitter blast spray paint, well, where am I at? Here I am. If you're going to use the glitter blast spray paint, I strongly recommend painting it first with a base coat that it's to cover the wood, and then you can get by with a light coating of the glitter blast. I made the mistake of painting this entire thing with the glitter blast, and glitter blast does not cover well. So I used a half a can on that little piece. I used over $8 in spray just to paint that little tree. So spray it first, get a good base coat, and then you can just spritz it with the glitter blast. And unlike using regular glitter and sprinkling on there and it's glued up, this glitter doesn't fall away and chip away. So it's a good durable finish, and it doesn't leave glitter everywhere. All right. So we're an hour in. Well, you just got here in time for wrapping up the discussion on designing this, the pitfalls to watch out for. But we're going to talk about one of Dale's projects now that he had a problem with and had some roadblocks. And I'm going to discuss how to correct those. And we'll look at his project. It wasn't one of mine. So there's still some few things to watch for. Yeah, and Armstead, I think you were here last week, and I appreciate your participation. And you might be kind of new to the streams, but as Peter says here, and I mentioned this one in the very beginning, when you have questions, precede your question with the 3 question marks. If you have a comment that you really want me to say, hey, you're doing that wrong, and this is my suggestion, I wouldn't say that. But if you have a suggestion, they're always welcome, because I love to learn new things. But I say I wouldn't say that because I don't feel like there are wrong ways to, but just because it's different than the way you're doing it doesn't make it wrong. It's just, here's another way, or here's a suggestion. But if it's a comment that you want me to see and or address, precede it with 3 exclamation points. And that makes those jump out at me when I'm looking at all these scrolling by. I don't read everything that goes by. I did not spray it first, Bill. And that's why I use so much paint. Paint it first with a good base coat, and then use glitter blast, and it covers really, really quick. Did you spray first or cut first? I cut first, because this stuff, when you use it, if you use it, it goes on thick and heavy. You would, and plus, I don't like even when I cut my glitter cardstock, can I reach it? There are times, because this is a cheaper way to do this, but because you're seeing this from all 4 sides, cardstock is not a real good option. But sometimes when I do projects, I will take cardstock, pre-glue it to my material, and then cut it out. But when I do, I put the glitter side face down on the workbed and cut from the back side of the material. So it's crucial that you think that through, because if it's important that you also mirror your image for the cutout, you have to think that out. And the reason I do that is because I don't like cutting with that. In fact, you see how the light bounces off the glitter. Well, your laser is going to do the same thing. And while it may not damage anything, if the laser is being reflected and bounced away, well, you're losing power. You're losing cutting ability. So I would not spray that on there and try and cut it out because of how thick it is. And when you use glitter cardstock, face down, and remember to mirror your image if it's necessary. It's not always necessary. All right. So now we are at an hour and 10, hour and 12. And my voice is starting to go. So we're going to address this with Dale's design, because I said I would. And I was really, really surprised and happy. I mean, I did an actual physical happy dance. I was actually standing up, so I did a little jig whenever I seen that Jason commented to Dale's post in the Hobo with Wood group on Facebook. I'm like, okay, wow. I wasn't even aware that he was in the group or he was monitoring anything group, because he's a busy man. He's a very, very busy man. Half time he never replies to any of the emails. He responds and makes things happen. He gets it done. He might just not. He may not remember to tell you that he did it. Okay. Comment here. I got a suggestion that might help you out. Put the question marks and the exclamation points and what the numbers mean. Oh yeah. I thought about that, Bob. I even thought about putting it in a banner. In fact, you know what? Just for grins and giggles, guys, if you are enjoying this channel and you are getting something from this, then I do strongly recommend that you go over to patreon.com and sign up with the hobowithwood.com. That's the link right there. There are 3 tiers to sponsor this channel and help me out. Because I don't sell a lot of physical product. I've done quite a few coasters over the last week and a half with that new kiosk. If you haven't seen those 2 videos, it's worth watching. The kiosk has paid for itself and made money, and I've eaten all week off of the money from coasters that I made with the kiosk. It's a very, very cheap laser. They've got them on special, I think, for the month of November, and they pay for themselves really quickly. But I hate doing production work because it takes away from the time that I can spend creating and designing. And that's what I really, really love. But I do have to pay the bills. And if I'm busy doing production work, I'm also not busy designing. And that's less time that I get new ideas or projects up for the patrons. There's 3 tiers in patron. There's bronze, silver, and gold. Bronze is $3 a month. Silver is $9 a month. Gold is $20 a month. You get a 60, 80, and 100% discount respectively on those tiers on all of the digital designs in Hobo with Wood. And that is how I support and maintain myself. That's how I pay my bills. It's how I buy the materials to keep the ideas going and the projects going. And I am extremely grateful for each and every one of you here that are patrons. I'll cover this last week, but I want to cover it again. If you have a membership on YouTube and you've already been billed for the 3 months in YouTube membership, cancel that membership on YouTube. Send me your email, or send me an email at the hobowithwood@gmail.com. In fact, if you don't want to do a regular monthly recurring donation, there is 2 options you can do for a monthly, a single donation. The PayPal me./Hobo Laser is a PayPal option. And Zelle, if you're familiar with Zelle, I don't have to explain it. Zelle, I get 100% of the money. It's instant. There's no delays and there's no fees for either of us. But there's the email, hobowithwood@gmail.com. anyway, those are there. Those are options. And I forgot where I just got derailed. But so now let's jump back over to Dell's problem and let's look at what he was trying to do. Well, in fact, I'll actually bring up I had him send me the file so I could find where those problems were at and why was it working or not working, because Jason's suggestion was the first thing I was going to try. And I did. And it didn't work 100%. It did not completely fix the problem. And I dove into it and found out why. And it wasn't because of LightBurn. LightBurn did what it was supposed to. There was problems with the actual design with the way those shapes were, and it made it not LightBurn friendly. And let's jump over. Actually, let's go back to LightBurn. Get rid of all of that. And we'll import the design. Okay. Now, let's show you. So this was a design that Dell was working on. It's a baseball game. And he had a problem that the holes are not uniform, and they weren't the size that he wanted them to be. And he was going to cut this out. It's a baseball game. So if we turn off the black layer completely, because we're not going to address, because there are a lot of symmetry problems with this design that I would never send it out as is, because I want it to, the laser can do, depending on your laser, the Rolly can do dang near perfection if you're working with dang near perfection. But my high school MS-DOS teacher in 1987, and I'm sure he wasn't one that coined this phrase, but he preached it to us every week. Garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. When you're programming and you're sending garbage information into the program, then you're going to get a garbage result. Well, this is the same thing. It's not MS-DOS, but if you send in poor information or garbage or less than perfection, you're going to get a less than perfect result from your laser, no matter how good your laser is. So if we turn off this black layer, what he had was all these circles, and he wanted to get them all to 3 millimeters. I think that's what he said. And if we look at this right now, what all's grouped? They're all grouped. So let's ungroup it all. And if I look at just that one, there we go. It's 2.689 width, and it's 2.044 high. And if we zoom in, you can see it's oval shaped. It's not a circle. But that's okay. That's one shape. Then if we come up here and look at this one, that's another shape. And it's 3.4 and 3.5, but it's not round or even oval. It's not even, I wouldn't even call that ovaloid. It's just a shape. And if we go back to Jason's comments, Jason said, select one and make it the new size, then select all of them except that one, shift and select that one. And so it's the last thing you selected, then click the arrange and make same width and same height. Now, so if the ultimate goal was to make these all 3 millimeters, so if I drew out a perfect circle, holding my shift and control to draw it out from the center and tell it I wanted that to be aspect ratio lock of 3 millimeters. And then I hold my shift button and select that one and tell it to go to the center. And to keep these from being confused, I'm going to put this on we'll put it so it's still nice and visible. We'll put it on the green and put it in line mode so it stands out, but also it's still easy to work with. All right, so the green one is what I want. The red is what I'm working with. So actually, here, if I take this piece, the original one, and let's set this out of the way for right now. We're going to need it, but we don't need it to do Jason's suggestion. If I take this piece and tell it unlock the aspect ratio because it's not symmetrical, and I tell it to go 3 and 3, I don't know if that's perfectly round or not, and I don't think that it is, but it's awful darn close. So now if I take that, I select these other 3. They're not grouped, but I've got those selected. Hold my shift button and select the one that I just made 3 and 3. Now he said go into the arrange menu, and it's supposed to have up here the in the toolpath, and I think it used to be there, but I could not find it anywhere. I could not find the right information. But you don't need to go up there. You select the 3 that you want to change, hold your shift button, select the one that you want it to be, and if you have the arrange long tool menu up here, there it is. Make selected items the same width and make selected items the same height. So there are there are 2 buttons up there in that toolpath for changing the width and the height of the selected shapes. But you can also, instead of going change width and change height, you can also just hold the shift button and select one of them, and it will move it height and width in one click. So I selected the first 3 that are too large, hold my shift button, select the one that I want it to be. I'm still holding my shift button, and I'm going to select this one right here, make them the same width. It changes all of those to the correct size. It did not relocate them. It did not move anything. They stayed in their fixed position. And now if we look at the individual sizes, well, looky there, 2.979. There's somehow it no longer 3. And this is why I said it worked, but it ain't perfect. And that's because there were so many irregularities with this piece to begin with. So now that's 3 and 3, or at least you think it is. So I'm going to select those 3 and select that one again, holding shift. But now when I look at that, that's 3 and 3, but that's 3 and 2. I just scrolled it up. It was 2.7 something. It did not go 3 and 3. Why? Because it was not a perfect circle or sphere to begin with. There was some elliptical tendencies to that part, so it made it not going to work. So if it was perfect, and if it was designed in LightBurn, and after I get through with what I'm doing and what I do to this, this will work. But it won't work now because it's not a perfect situation. So let's look here. I don't know if I'm okay. I have a suggestion that might help you out. Oh, we already did that. My kiosk will be here Wednesday. Hey, congratulations. Hey, Steve, I have converted my mate to go gold this with, okay. Thank you. You are going to see the benefits. I promise you, you will see the benefits. Do you have a referral link for the kiosk? Yeah, I do. I don't know if I've got it in the banners. Oh, you know what? I'll do it real fast. Let's see. And there. So there's the banner, or there's the link for the kiosk. And I created 2 jigs that work in the kiosk. If you haven't watched those videos, you need to go watch them. I have two jigs that fit into the base of the kiosk. If you buy the kiosk using my link and send me your order information, I will send you those jigs for free. They're in the store, but I'll send them to you for free if you use my link. That was that one. That was that one. And I just seen this one. It's not got. You'll find this a lot, not Stanley. Whenever a file is designed in other software other than LightBurn, I don't know if it's done in Adobe or if it's done wherever, you find this a lot. Anytime it's an SVG that gets imported into LightBurn, a lot of times you'll find duplications, 4 or 5 of the same exact shape, one on top of the other. They're never perfectly symmetrical. There's always all kinds. It's not that they won't work, but there's problems with it. Okay. Mark that now. So those didn't work. They did not come out perfectly symmetrical. And we did what LightBurn says to do. And if they were symmetrical to begin with, it would have worked. So here's a fix for when you have this problem. We scroll out here. In fact, I'm going to go back to where I had that first green one in there. There we go. Actually, I'm going to go on back. There's what he started with. And we've got 2 arches here, a couple of different things going on, different groupings. And because I was asleep when he posted this, and I didn't have a chance. He'd already gotten a resolution before I was able to respond. This is how I would approach it. But in order for him the way he corrected it, he went in and recreated and repositioned each individual circle. And that was a little bit tedious. Well, it wasn't brain surgery, but it was time consuming. So here's how you can save a tremendous amount of time. I know that I need 4 right here. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to grab my pencil tool and I'm going to draw a straight line from here. I get my crosshairs where I know I'm right in the center of that circle. Hold my shift button and draw a straight line over here. And you see these are not even perfectly lined up because I'm not in the center of that circle. But I'm going to get right there and you can see, oh, I didn't let go in time. Try again, pencil. Here. And now I've got a straight line right there. Now I'm going to take, I didn't want to do that on my selector tool. This one I drew out and it is a 3x3 perfect sphere. I'm going to take that and I'm going to bring that center right there to the end of that line. I get my crosshairs. That tells me the center of the sphere. Let's get it where you can see it good. The center of the sphere is on the end of that line when you get those crosshairs right there. Now I'm going to select, I've got the circle selected. I want you to see all this. I'm holding shift and I'm going to select the path, the line, and I'm going to come up here to arrange and I'm going to copy along path. Copy along path. And that's going to ask me how many copies do I want. I want 4 copies. And if we look here, it's got them perfectly spaced out to where the 4th one is in the very end, or the center is at the end of that line. And I can say, okay. So that quick, I recreated those and I wouldn't need that line anymore. I could get rid of that. All of these red ones could go bye-bye. Now I come over here, get my pencil tool again. I'm going to get right in the center of that straight line over to the center of that. And these are identical. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw out a perfect sphere, holding Control and Shift to draw it out from the center. Tell it I want it to be 3 millimeters. And then I'm going to drag it down and put it right on the end of that line to get my crosshairs right there. Hold my Shift button, select that line, arrange, copy along path, How many copies do I need? Well, I can't see them because I'm not zooming. And this is a problem with LightBurn. Not a problem, but right here with that menu open, you can't scroll in or out. So I need to place that where I can see. And now arrange, copy along path, move that menu so I can see, and I will need more copies. So I'll just start increasing my copy numbers until, there we go. I've got one in each of those, and they're evenly spaced, and I can say okay. And then I could actually just turn off the red layer. Or no, I'm sorry, not the red layer. Turn off the green layer. Select all of these and hit the delete button to get rid of them. Turn back on my green layer. Select that line and get rid of it. Group those, Control D, or yeah, group them, and now duplicate them, Control D, and come down here and tell it to go to this one right in the center. And with them, I've grouped these to begin with. And because they're grouped, I just have to tell it to go to the center of this one. And it moves them all right down there and keeps everything spaced. And we'll see if they're lined up there. But now I can turn off the green again. Select all those guys and delete them, turn my green back on. So now I've got those all done and redone. And I'm not having to do all of them, just doing one. Now these are simple enough. There's just 3 of them. So in the amount of time that it would take you to go to the trouble of, it's just as easy to take those and make 3 millimeter circles, duplicate it. 1, 2, that's 3 duplications there. 2 duplications in the original. You snap that into place. Grab one, snap that into place. Grab one and snap that one into place. Turn off my green. Select all 3. Delete. Turn on my green. Now these 2 are identical, but these are not. And these are on a curve. This one's a little bit more challenging, but it's really not that difficult. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do the same thing. Now, see, these have got a funky little teardrop shape going on with them, but it was really kind of funny. I noticed whenever I selected them, I could tell it and to go to 3 by 3, and it would do that, but it'd still be teardrop shape. It was kind of funky. But if I come over here and I get my pencil tool, come to the middle of this one, hold my shift button and draw out a straight line until I get to the middle of that one. Then I'm going to get my arrow tool, my selector tool, select that line, go into node editing, and I'm going to hit the letter M for middle. It doesn't matter if I come over here, actually. I can just hit the letter M, and that's going to put a node over there in the middle. Then I'm going to hover over that node, and I'm going to hit the letter S for smooth. And if you hold your cursor over the node editing tool, it'll give you all those shortcuts. S for smooth, M for middle. All your shortcuts are there by just hovering over that tool. But now that that's smooth, I'm going to select just that node, and I'm going to use my shift button and my down arrow button, and I'm going to start drawing that down into a curve that's similar to what's there. Now, these handles on the either end of this are coming still straight out, and that's causing you to have a little bit of a straight and then a turn down. So if you grab that handle and just bring it down to your line, your curve, just bring it down to there where it overlaps, it gives you a nice even curve. And its position looks pretty good. Now I'll draw out a perfect circle. Tell it to be 3 millimeters. Snap it to the end of that curved line I just did. Hold my shift button, select the curved line, and do the same thing. Copy a long path. And I only need 4 of them. And it goes to the end of the line and say, okay, turn off my red layer, or turn off my green layer. Turn off the green layer. Select all those, delete it, turn them back on, delete that toolpath, select all those, group them. Now with those grouped, hit Control D, duplicate it. And I'm going to move it over here just using the arrow keys. But then I'm going to zoom in tight right over here. I'm going to group all of these and then select that group and hold my shift button, select that group and tell it to bullseye, center them up. Then all I have to do is select just the red and delete that. Now those are done. Now, do you know how we're going to do these two? The same way. And these two, the asymmetry of this design really shows itself up when I do these, because they're not even the two furthest most circles are not on the same plane. So if I come back over here, I grab my pencil tool and I'm going to come right in here, get right, and it's kind of tricky. I'm going to get right there in the center. There we go. Start my line, scroll out, come over here and see how far out of line that is. It's really jacked up. It's messed up. So I'm going to get to where I feel like I'm close to about the center of that circle, and left click to stop drawing, right click to stop the line. Now I will, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and get the other one too. I'm going to go ahead and grab that pencil tool, and I'm going to come and do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to get in here, get tight, get right there, left click to start it. Come over here, hold shift to make it a perfectly straight line, and get to where it's about right. Left click to stop the line, right click to stop drawing. Now I can take both. I need to get my selector tool first. Get both of those, go into node editing, use the letter M for middle. Or actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to make sure that the lower one is centered with this one. Now I know it's perfectly spaced. And now I will select them both, go into node editing, use the letter M for middle. And that should put my nodes one right above each other. And now you can move them up together, but you're going to have to separate them in a minute. Select them both and take them up. I didn't hit the letter S to begin with. That's okay. I'm going to use my shift and bring it down a little bit to about there. Now I can use the letter S, hover over that node and hit the letter S and hit the letter S. And that makes it a little bit more of a curve. But you can see this one's way too high. So now I just click anywhere to deselect them and select just that one. Hold my shift and bring that down to about there. And that looks like it's about the center of those. That's about the center of those. I'm going to move my handles the same way I did on the other. I'm just going to take and twist them up to where they're right in there on the line. And you want to be careful not to stretch your handle out, because when you do, it's going to change your curve. You want to try and keep its position relative to the distance from the corner node the same. Just move it up to overlapping. And there may be a little bit of asymmetry here if you don't get them exactly, but those are going to be really darn close. And now with that done, all you got to do is the same thing one more time, or two more times. Draw out a perfect circle, 3 mil. Come in here and put it right on the end of that line. Now I've already counted, there's 18 of these. Hold my shift button, select that, and tell it arrange, copy along path, 18 copies, and say okay. And now I can actually just grab that one, Control D, duplicate it, and bring that duplicate right down to that line. Hold my shift button and select the toolpath or that line, arrange, copy along path, 18 copies. Okay. And now I can turn off my green, select all of those and hit the delete button, turn back on my green. I've got all those, turn my black back on, and those are positioned. Now, what we just did is going to be perfectly symmetrical. They're going to be all perfect 3 millimeter round circles that will be cut out for his pegs. And they're completely symmetrical with each other from left to right side position on it. But now the asymmetry of the rest of the design becomes glaring in some places. And close enough works if you're doing scroll saws and drills. But when you're working with lasers, close enough really doesn't cut it. So and I don't know how much of the design, Dale, you redesigned complete or reworked, but I got some ideas with this piece, and I'm going to redo the entire design, and I'm even going to redo the game. I'm going to change it up completely and offer the Hobo version of this. And I don't feel like I'm going to be copying them because mine's going to be completely different than them. It's going to be the same concept, but a cup and a cup are both cups, but one's not identical. They're not the same thing. Stanley, I'll go back up my comments, but Stanley just asked, will a 3mm peg fit in a 3mm hole? Depends on your peg, how specific, how tight is it? And if you cut out a 3mm hole, your laser has actually got additional kerf. Your end result is going to be larger than 3mm. So maybe, depending on how close your peg is to an actual 3mm. If it was exactly 3mm, it would probably fit. It'd be snug. But that's a whole nother live stream because we're 1:45 here. We'll wrap this up before we go 2 hours or by 2 hours. But if we tried to address every single hurdle, that's how we get into 5-hour live streams. And my voice is going, we're not going to do that today. But I wanted to show how you can redo all of those without having to do each individual one over. And also you'll create it much more symmetrically this way. And then you could actually use those to help with the position of anything else that you see is out of line, because yours are going to be perfect. So I'm going to scroll up here and look for any questions or comments since I put in. And grab my drink here. Oh, not empty. Good timing. I just want to say, hey, Chuck, I do appreciate you immensely. I appreciate your support. In my work, refer to the S as spline. S, as in smooth. And I guess that's what we're talking about when I hit S on the node. And I use the word smooth simply because if we hover over that node, if we go into node editing and we hover over there, you'll see right there, the very first thing, S is smooth, node, or line. That's just why I said smooth. And I'm guessing that's the same thing you're referring to as you use, refer S as spline. Looking at y'all's jokes between yourself, close enough is never close enough. Funny, and it depends on how big your hammer is. Yeah, and there are some folks, there are some creators that are very popular that, and I'm all about my hammers. I use my hammers to put my boxes together, but there's some folks like, well, if it's close enough, we'll just hammer it together. It'll go. We'll make it fit. And that's not what I'm want to do. Well, Dale, I hope that helped you out a lot with this design. Now, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this. And you'll want to watch for my version of this because there's some things I've never seen this game before, but I think it could be a really cool game. And for you guys who don't know, this is a dice game. And I'd never seen it before until he sent me this file. And it's really, really cool. And I'm going to show you that as soon as I see these other questions here. Yeah, hammer time. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Now, let me show you what I'm going to do with this design, how I'm going to make it my own, what I'm going to do to change it up. And I've already been working on it. And this is another example of, a lot. And again, guys, if anybody in this stream created this file, I am not nitpicking your file or saying there's anything wrong with your file or your design. I'm just showing and this is my OCD, and I've never been diagnosed with OCD, but I want things exactly lined up. I want things perfectly perpendicular and parallel where they're supposed to be. And there are things about this SVG that will create anomalies in your output that are less than desirable when it comes to laser engraving. And what I mean by that is this. If we come over here and we look at this whole piece, and we look right here, we got home run up here. Well, let's go into selector tool. All right, first, this is being that it's an SVG that's been imported, and LightBurn will do this even if you create a file in LightBurn and you export it as an SVG, and then you bring it back into LightBurn and open it up as the SVG, it's no longer text. It's no longer a font. It's now shapes. So it's not a word that you can edit and change without just deleting it and typing it over again. But in addition to that, because whoever did this design initially, they didn't have the letters welded together. Each of these are individual letters, and where they overlap will create a void in your engraving. It's not going to look smooth. And I'll show you here. If we look here, see how they overlap? Well, that's not going to engrave. That's going to be a blank spot in your output there too. So everywhere these letters overlap each other, now you can fix it by selecting each of the pieces and welding them together. And if they had welded them to begin with, then it would be a non-issue. But to go through and redo all of those, it's a little bit tedious. It's not extensive manual labor to do that. But if I was, see, they're not grouped. They're individual shapes. You got to be careful. But if what I just do, undo. Oh, come on now, fingers, mouse. And this is why this is tedious. Even though it's not hard to do, man, you can screw the pooch real quick. And you can't do but two shapes at a time. So you select one and weld it to the other, and you select the other and weld it to the other. And I just grabbed two pieces of the E. There we go. And that is a much cleaner result when you laser it. That doesn't look good. But there are other things I don't like about this. These are all the possible dice combinations. And if we put this in line mode so we can see it better, the dice are kind of like the circles were. They're not symmetrical. They're not evenly shaped. There are lots of things about this that I don't like. And when it comes to your options, when you roll the die, you got home run up here, home run down here. You got walk and walk, pop out, fly, walk, walk. A lot of these are duplicates, and there are some things that are not on here. So I'm going to redo it. And the way I'm going to redo it, it could actually draw you know why I don't watch baseball? It takes too long. It's almost like golf, except the announcers get a little bit more excited. There's not enough high energy, consistent high energy to keep me in my attention. But you could do this with this dice game as well. Instead of having multiple home runs or multiple walks, one of them needs to be labeled a strike. And so it's possible that you could actually roll 3 strikes and strike out. So if you were rolling the dice and you rolled a strike, you get to roll again until you either got a hit or you got out. So that would lengthen the game. So I would add a few things. I'd add a strike. I'd add a ball, because you could even roll 4 balls and get a walk. And the way this works, the pegs, the holes or so as you roll, you would move your pegs according from, here's first base, second base, third base. There's no peg for, hey, I got a home run. But I would also add, you've got up here for outs, but I'd add a place for balls and strikes. And it really make the game last a whole lot longer. And you might throw the board at each other before you finished it. You might even do, instead of 9 innings, you may only play 1 inning at a time. But here's what I've been doing. And I shared this Christmas tree file with my patrons. I mentioned that to you. But if I go to my dice, where are my dice? There we go. I double click this one, bring it in here. Look at that symmetry. Look at that. Look at how clean all that is and how professional all that is. It is super, super clean. It's going to laser like nobody's business. And then I've got over here the complete set of all the possible combinations. There's all your ones with the 1 through 6. Here's all your 2s. And you don't have a 2 and a 1 because you got it over here. So there's your double 2s and the 3s and 4s. And if we look at all of them, they're all perfect. And that's the kind of stuff that I do with my designs. I want perfection. Not that I'm perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. But I want my designs to be as close to perfect as I can get them. So if you ever go to hobowithwood.com and purchase a file and you find a problem with the file, that is a true problem, not something that you just didn't understand or the way I intended it to be used. And this happens, folks. If you find a problem with my file and you say, hey, I found an issue here, look at this, I'll go fix it. Refund you. If you bought the file, I'll refund you your money. And then I send out the amended file to everyone who's already bought the file. I bet you ain't nobody on Etsy doing that. All right. So any questions or comments? Anything from a peanut gallery? Can you use the weld instead of the union on more than no? Because the weld is still a Boolean. Any of those over there on the side, any of those Boolean tools, you can only do 2 shapes at a time. If you have a duplicate layers, you can go to edit, then go to delete. Yes. Yep. So, and a lot of times, especially depending on how big the file is, you might have 100 pieces that have 2 duplicates on one, 3 duplicates on another one, or whatever. And so by using that shortcut to eliminate duplicates, that works. But the problem with that is, just like these pieces are not perfectly symmetrical, things that are designed in Adobe and other different software, sometimes you might have 2 or 3 layers that are practically overlapping, but they're not overlapping. They're close, but not perfectly. Not exact duplicates. And you have to delete. If there's a tolerance in there, you might be able to set the tolerance level and delete. I haven't used it in so long, I can't remember. Some of the tools will have delete duplicates with a tolerance level, and you can do that. Contrary to what everyone thinks, Steve can make mistakes too. A to the men. I certainly can. I got married once. And that was a mistake. All right, guys. Any other questions? Anything else? Any concerns? We're wrapping this up. We're at 2 hours. I thank you all for hanging out with me. I can't believe we're at 100 people here. I didn't even notice the count. Normally, this Saturday show is this early stream is a lower number because it's more appealing to the other folks across the pond. But everybody's welcome. Doesn't matter. We appreciate it. I love seeing everybody here. If you were late to the show, I do recommend going back and watching the first half where I talked about the hurdles of designing pieces like this. I don't care if you want you. I don't care if you never had a Christmas tree in your house before and you don't ever want to have a Christmas tree in your house. It's against you don't celebrate Christmas. It's not in your religion or whatever. You're an atheist and you're like, we don't even give away stuff on Christ's birthday, which is not really his birthday. It's just a day anyway, squirrel. The methods used to do this design are extremely valuable things to know, because it will prevent you from creating some of the same roadblocks in your designs if you learn what to look for and how to identify what will be potential problems and how you can create a piece and then make it still universal to adjust with multiple thicknesses without creating headaches for yourself. So go back and watch the whole thing if you were late to the show. You will not regret it. All right, guys, and I'll wrap this up. I do thank each and every one of my patrons. I thank each of you for being here. And I want to cover again, if you have a membership on YouTube and you have done 3 months of memberships on YouTube, cancel it, get rid of it. Send me an email with your shirt size, and I'm having the shirts printed up and I shouldn't have to say this, but I need to say it because I've got a lot of emails this week. And it's because of what I just said. I said, send me an email with your shirt size. Include your shipping address. Doesn't do me a lick of good to know what size shirt you wear if I don't know how to get it to you. So send me your shirt size and your address, and I'll get those up. It may be into December before they start going out. It may get to you in time for a Christmas present. But cancel your YouTube memberships. YouTube takes too much of that money. I got their bonus money, so we played their game, and I love it. You're going to get a free t-shirt that you paid for with your 3 months worth of memberships. Cancel your YouTube memberships. If you did that and you're not a patron, go over to Patreon and do that instead. It's a whole lot more beneficial for you. You're going to have access to a whole lot more files for free if you go gold. That's the best deal. It really is. And if any of you watching have any trouble with your files, like Dale did with this one, I didn't have anything like this on my site, so I didn't have anything to offer him. He found something on Etsy, bought it, unaware. In fact, I'll even go so far as to strongly recommend when you buy a file off of Etsy or anywhere else, if they don't say it, try to contact the seller and ask them, hey, was this designed in LightBurn? If it wasn't designed in LightBurn, then you may go ahead and just plan to anticipate problems like this. If it was designed in LightBurn, even if it's not a LightBurn file, even if it's still a SVG that you're going to download, if they designed it in LightBurn, most likely you won't have these roadblocks, these headaches. But if especially if you're a patron, if you're having a problem with files like this, email me your problems and the file, because as Jason mentioned in his comment, he told how to fix the problem, but because he was not able to see the file and see the irregularities of those spheres, he had no way of knowing that those tools weren't going to work. So when you have a problem, email me with a list of the problems you're having, attach the file you're trying to work with. I'll look at it, see if I can, done. This week, I don't know how many people I connected with this week. It was every day, 1 or 2 people every day that I contacted right here in this studio, and we worked through, and because I can take this file that Dale sent me, fix all the problems that I feel are problems, fix all the symmetry, make it a perfect file, and send it back to him. But what benefit of that is to him other than he got a file that's correct? I would rather take the time to sit down with you and show you the problems that I feel are problems, show you how to correct and address those, help you be able to recognize the issues and how to fix them. Not that I don't ever want to hear from you again, I would rather you to have the knowledge to know how to fix the issues, see them and fix them, and not have to, because especially if you're in New Zealand and you have an issue, there have been times that folks have hit me up and I'm up, I'm ready, and I can help them. But there's also times that you recognize you got a problem and I'm out. Or I might be at dinner and unable to assist. So I'd rather educate you, show you how to do it. And I do that for patrons or non-patrons. I do that for anybody that asks for help, and hope that you recognize that, yeah, okay. And I do have some really good patrons who really do help me out. So that's why I don't mind helping. And I'm not going to preach at you, but there's a parable in the Bible where you've got the tax collectors or the priests that are standing in the chapel or in the church, and they're observing, and this, the rich man walks up and he just lays a big old pile of money in the offering plates, and they comes back there standing there with the priest, and then this little old lady walks down there and she puts a little penance in there, just a little, and the rich man's just shaking his head. It's like, wow, why does she even bother? The priest are like, wait a minute, she gave him a whole lot more than you did. And the rich man said, how you figure? And he said, because she gave everything she's got. That's all she had to her name, and she just gave it. You never miss what you give away. You'll never miss it. So she gave more than he did. And for that reason, I do not discriminate with any of my patrons, gold, silver, or bronze, when it comes to giving assistance. And I don't discriminate if they're a patron or not. Somebody contacts me for help, I don't ask if they're a patron. I just help. Just help. That's what the community is about. And I also ask that you respect that if you do buy my files, recognize that I do put a lot of time and effort into my files. Don't be sharing the files with all your friends and families and neighbors and giving away stuff or repackaging them or selling them, because that's how I keep my lights on. So, yeah. Taxes suck. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you. I hope you all have a great weekend. Hopefully my world is going back to normal, because at this time, it's now 5 o'clock. Trump is doing Greensboro, which is about 4.5 hours from here at 7 o'clock. So he's gone. All the headaches should be gone. My world should be back to normal. So I shouldn't have any traffic issues or delays, and I should have access to my restaurants without any problems. I might even go get my Grand Slam now. I didn't get it for breakfast. I might go get a waffle now for dinner. Have a great weekend, the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the week. And I don't know what the next videos are going to hold, because they generally come from suggestions or questions from you guys. So we'll see what pops up, and we'll see you in the next video. See ya.